Hello and welcome to Scared Shitless. This is a horror retrospective, the show where we open up horror media like a douchebag having his insides sucked out through his arsehole in a public swimming pool. And that is a spoiler warning for anyone interested. I am Ryan, and this week I am joined by Al,
Hi guys.
Ali,
All right, YouTubers.
and Jamie.
Hello, everybody.
And this week we are going to be discussing the 2009 fourth film in the franchise, The Final Destination. The Final Destination was written by Eric Bress and directed by David R. Ellis, the writer and director responsible for the second film in the franchise, returning again for their fourth outing. This film stars Bobby Campo, Chantel Van Santen, Haley Webb, Mykelti Williamson, whose name I potentially just butchered, Nick Zano, and Krista Allen. This film is exactly the same plot as every other film in the franchise, except the premonition is of an accident at a racetrack this time. There's really no more. There's really no point in me explaining the premise of these movies anymore.
If you've got to this point, yeah.
Yeah. So, this film, unlike the others, doesn't open with opening credits. This one actually opens at the racetrack. So I suppose we'll get straight to discussing. Actually, before we discuss the premonition, Ali,
Yes.
why don't you tell us what you thought of this film? Because I know you and I have different opinions on this.
I know the opening credits didn't start right at the start of the film, but when we did get into them, I actually liked how.
I'm not talking about the opening credits. Just give me your thoughts on the film as a whole.
All right. I actually preferred it over the third one. In all honesty.
That's all you're giving us? Okay, short and sweet.
No. I liked it. I liked the fact that throughout the whole films, from the sequels, they try and one up each other. And I just preferred the fourth film to the third film as a whole.
Okay, Al, what did you think of this film in general?
Yeah, in general, it's pretty much what you expect. It's gorier than the previous film. The acting's a little bit worse. It's maybe just not quite put together the same. But yeah, in general, we're here for the deaths, right? There's no two ways about it.
Jamie, what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, it was all right.
Okay, I'll quickly give my thoughts on it and then we'll move on to discussing it from there. So as a whole, I think this film can suck a dick. I think it absolutely sucked. I genuinely think it is the worst in the franchise by a long shot. There were points I'm like, why the fuck am I watching this? Why am I wasting my time with this utter bullshit? Well, okay, so with that said, and I will explain.
Don't hold back.
I will explain kind of why as we go on. But right, so this film opened with the premonition. So the premonition, they're at a racetrack. There's a massive crash. Lots of people die. The building kind of collapses. There's explosions. There's debris flying about. What did you think of this premonition, Al?
I didn't like it as much as the previous ones. It felt like it was a bit lazy. The majority of them just had concrete fall on them. I mean, there was a couple of things flew through the air, and a couple of people were killed by the explosions of the cars. But generally, it's kind of all the same. If you look back at like the airplane or the car crash, every single person, or pair of people, were dying in different ways. There was different things happening all over the place. Whereas this one just felt like it was really samey.
Okay. Would you guys agree with that, or do you disagree? What's your thoughts on the premonition?
I mean, I'd say it was, pretty underwhelming compared to what we've seen so far.
Ali, you preferred this
absolutely.
to the third one. Do you think this premonition was better than the roller coaster?
Seems putting all the permissions together, it just seemed the exact same as the third. In honesty, and yes, I know I said I do prefer this film. I do agree with Al saying they did get quite lazy when it came to the deaths at the racetrack. There was a few A, B, and C, but everything else is just it's the building. Poof, that's it.
My issue with this premonition is I think it looks terrible. It looks really CGI the entire thing. In fact, that's an issue I have with the whole movie. I think it looks awful.
But why has that happened? Because it's the same guy that directed the second one.
I actually have no idea, because I watched the special features because I have this entire series on Blu-ray, and they've done so much cool practical effects. Like we saw in this premonition, they flipped real cars. They actually flipped cars. They took one car and set it on fire and crashed it into a pillar. And crushed a dummy, and they done all this cool stuff. They crushed a dummy with an engine that they propelled at it. They done so much cool practical stuff, but then when it comes to the final product, the film does not look.
Is that not because they were shooting for the 3D market and they've gone completely overboard with the 3D stuff to try and draw people into cinema? Whereas when we now watch that on Blu-ray, it looks, because the early 3D stuff like that looks terrible.
Yeah,
it's a bit like My Bloody Valentine. We've got things that are meant to come out the screen at you, and it's quite fun when you're at the cinema and you've got the glasses on and stuff like that. But especially if you watch them on Blu-ray or high def or whatever now,
it doesn't hold
up.
They
just look, they're almost cartoonish. Mm-hmm. There's quite a few things I thought. In this film, they did look like a cartoon coming out the screen.
Yeah. But I don't understand why, when they've done so much cool practical stuff, and then it doesn't look practical in the final movie. So whether they've taken something that's practical and then been like, we'll go over it with computer effects to touch it up, and they've just gone too far, or I have no idea. But they take something that should look like a kick-ass practical effect, like they've done in the previous movies, and then they've ruined it with too much computer stuff. And I feel that's a running issue throughout this entire film, and an issue, as you say, they tried so hard to do these 3D effects, which might be fun when you're watching it in the cinema in 3D, but when you're watching it at home, 11 years after it was made, it does not hold up. But I mean, there's 3D movies from the 80s that I don't think look as bad as this. Like, there's a Friday the 13th film that was made for 3D, and I would say it holds up better than this because they made it 3D by camera tricks and things like that, and so you can watch it in 2D and it doesn't look terrible, instead of going over and generating it. And I think it's the difference between, again, practical effects and computer effects. One holds up decades later.
I remember a time when it was like everyone was just doing 3D because it was like a gimmick thing. I don't know if 2009 was that time frame, because it was so long ago.
Avatar inspired it. I think it must have been around that time where literally everything was 3D. I remember one of the Saw films was 3D as well. It was probably around the same time as this. But anyway,
so was Captain America, the first film, that was 3D too.
Okay, well, either way,
for comic book fans,
I think it looks shit. I think the whole premonition looks shit, which I think is a real shame. I genuinely do. I think it's a real shame, because that is one thing these films always do well. They do the deaths well, and when they don't hold up,
I think it was interesting that they weren't in a vehicle this time. It was like a sort of static. That's the only save. It was different. They weren't they weren't the ones moving. I thought that's a little that's a little bit different, but it didn't make it any more interesting. It's my least favorite premonition.
But after the premonition, we move on to the opening credits. And I have to say, as much as I dislike this film, I think the opening credits are fucking amazing. I genuinely do. I think the like 3D effect, not the 3D effect, the like X-ray effect, of us seeing all the previous deaths that have happened in the franchise so far. I think that is incredible opening credits. I think it totally gets you hyped for the film that's to come, even if that film happens to be super disappointing. And I think it genuinely actually felt like like the opening credits feels like they understand what Final Destination should be. It's like they understand what you want to see. You're here to see some cool deaths. I
Did
think
they have a couple of deaths from the other movies? Because there was the one where the guy had his head like sort of cut off.
Every death we saw in this film, in the opening credits, was from the three previous films.
Yeah.
So yeah, they just showed it in some pretty cool ways. So they showed us that one from the first film. They showed us the guy getting choked with the
barbed wire,
the
cutting the boy
wire
into 4 bits.
Yeah, we saw the girl Terry getting hit by the bus. We saw we saw the guy getting the fire escape through his eye. We did see like just some of the best deaths from the franchise. So what did you guys think about these opening credits? Were you as impressed with them as I was?
Oh, I mean, it looked spectacular. Like the computer stuff they did, that's good use of computers.
That is good use of computers. I agree there.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it, but at the same time, I was like, it's just an opening credit. It's just I don't watch a movie because it's got a cool opening sequence. I mean, it was cool.
That's true. It did get me hyped though. I've got to say, it did definitely get me hyped. What did you think of it, Al?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same as Jamie. It's like every time we spoke about these films, obviously you and Ali in particular have always talked quite a lot about the opening credits, and I'm just like, I just glazed over the opening credits. I didn't even pay any attention to them. But these were the first ones that I probably actually did pay a bit of attention to, just because they did draw you in, and you're like, oh, that was that one. Oh, then that was that one. So yeah. Like I will say that, like, this is the first time that I feel like I can actually join in at all in the opening credits conversation, because before the other ones I just didn't care about. I just like it's credits.
I think that's fair. What about yourself then, Ali? What did you?
Well, I'm actually paying attention to the opening credits this time, and because what I got from the opening credits was it was sort of telling you a little story as well, saying this is what the previous deaths have been. Now we're going to show you how we can up those deaths.
I totally agree.
That's just the vibe that I got from that. And also seeing it, as you say, in the X-ray effect as well. That was, if you were in the cinema and you had the glasses on, it would have been a cool thing to see.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of that Mortal Kombat game where they put the fatalities in the X-ray effect.
Oh, yeah.
I thought it was super cool in Mortal Kombat. I think it's super cool in this. In general, I think that X-ray effect is a great way to see someone die, to see something horrific happen. That's a really cool stylistic way of doing it, in my opinion. But right, I suppose we'll move on to the deaths. What we wait for in this franchise. So the movie opens at the racetrack, as discussed, where there is a large crash, and the mechanic's wife is destroyed by a tire. And I would have had no idea how many people died in this, but thanks to our report in the movie, it lets us know that 52 people died during that initial incident.
That's helpful.
That is very helpful, yeah, because in the previous film there was a thing on the train, and I'm like, no idea, absolutely no idea. So we're just going to ignore those people and count everyone else. So it's good that it counted them for us. The first individual death, as it were, is we have, and I have literally called the guy here racist dickbag, because
good name.
Well, I thought these characters are all terrible. There's no point in me remembering any of their names. So
these like, just before you go on, these are the worst characters out of any of the movies. I mean, this
honestly awful. Yeah.
The only character I like is that security guard dude, and I can't even remember his name.
Played by Mike Kelty Williamson. He actually is best known as Bubba from Forrest Gump.
Really?
So
Nice.
he has been in some good stuff. This is just not it. And honestly, I don't think he's very good in it either, but I don't necessarily think that's his fault. I don't think he's a bad actor. I think he probably done as well as he could. But anyway, so the first death, racist dick, dragged behind a truck and set on fire. What did you guys think of this death? Let's hear from you, Jamie.
I like that he died first after dropping that, big N bomb at the track.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot. I don't know if they've got to. Words are hard. I think fire is a running theme in this film. There's a lot of fiery kinds of deaths, isn't there? And he gets pulled in, and then the big explosion. I mean,
and his face ends up on the security guard's lawn. George, the security guard's name was George. He's one of the few characters who I actually bothered name to remember. So, but yeah,
I mean, I liked the explosion, but I mean, compared to this, was it the first set of deaths in the last film? This was like
tame. Yeah.
Al,
what did you think of the security guard's death? The security guard's death, racist dick's death.
Yeah, I didn't think it was particularly good. I think kind of touching on what Jamie was saying there. It's just like you would kind of expect the first one to be quite a good one, and especially when you've got somebody who is good. You'd like to think that should be pretty much unanimously hated by everybody watching the film.
Yeah, everybody wants to see this guy.
You want to do it in a good way, and essentially,
100%.
Yeah, he got dragged along, and then he went on fire. But I just didn't think they could have done it. Sort of, I thought they would do it bigger and better.
Yes.
When you look at all the other deaths, and even in the series, go back to the first film, which I think we can all agree is the tamest by far.
Yes.
You'd still expect, as an individual death, for it to be worse.
I completely agree. Ali, what's your thoughts on it?
I'm in an agreement with Al. They could have done it a lot better, definitely. Especially if he's, as you say, he's the one that you really want to dislike at the start. You'd think he would have gotten the most gory death, But
I think the one saving grace about this guy's death,
the explosion.
Well, it wasn't the gore, it wasn't the special effects.
We all know Jamie likes an explosion.
Yeah,
I do like explosions.
It wasn't anything like that. It's that his beer fell onto his radio and it was playing "Why Can't We Be Friends," which I just thought was quite a funny song to play for when he was trying to burn a cross on someone's
one
lawn.
thing. The movie opened with a great track from Shinedown. I was meant to mention that, brilliant song.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, just because you mentioned the song,
Yeah, why not? So the next death we had, I have put MILF / her name was actually Samantha, but she's there just to be a MILF.
There was actually, I don't know if did you notice in the credits that her husband in the credits is just called MILF's husband.
I did not. No, I did not.
And a proper we giggle at that when the credits started rolling, and I was just like, "Oh, that is the best thing to be identified on." Having that on your IMDb.
Yeah, MILF's husband. That's not bad. So she died with a stone through the eye after some pretty big red herrings at the hairdressers. And yeah,
it just went on so long.
Did
you not think? It was just like cut to the fan, right? We get it. And 3, 4, 5. I don't even know how many times cuts back to the fan, cuts back to the chair. Right, we get it. Come on.
Yeah, cuts to the hairspray slowly moving towards the straighteners, and right, we get it. There's a bunch of shit that could kill her here. None of it does. She gets a stone through the eye that got propelled at her with a lawnmower on the other side of the road.
It's quite funny how the boy riding the lawnmower just like drives off.
Yeah, yeah.
I quite like that. Just zero fucks.
I think the funniest thing about this death is directly before she died, she said to her sons, "I've got my eye on you."
Yeah,
right for the eye.
That was a joke.
Yeah.
Is your eye getting taken out?
But I mean, I wasn't. No. What did you think of this death? How did you feel about it?
sure.
Yeah.
No. Okay, so next we have the mechanic who was blasted through a fence by a gas tank after narrowly missing getting crushed by a truck. Again, I think this looked terrible, which is a shame because, again, in the special features, they show us they actually built a dummy and rammed it through a fence. It could have looked epic, but I think they went over it with computer animation and stuff to try and make it more 3D. And I think at the end, it looks like a cartoon death.
Absolutely, that's exactly what I thought. It looked like. It just looked like a cartoon. Like it's so coloured in, and it's so obviously. Again, it's my complaint with this film pretty much the whole way through. They've done it so specifically for 3D that when you watch it in high def, or you probably not in high def, you're just like, well, this looks shit.
Yeah.
And because it was like if they just done it and they hadn't done it for 3D and it wasn't overscaled like it was, it's like you got all these really vivid, totally unrealistic colors, and if they just done it even quite dark and gritty, it probably would have looked pretty cool. And like say, if they have done it with practical effects for a lot of it, that I think they could have made it look really good and really pretty messed up.
Absolutely love to see a cut of this film without all the extra like computer animation stuff and the 3D effects added in. I would just love to see it shot, or I mean not the whole film, but the deaths shot with the practical effects and stuff and without all the extra shit. Because honestly, if you watch if you have the chance to watch the special features for this, I would recommend doing it because the same with the rest of the series, you know, the stunt team and the makeup crew and, you know, the special effects guys who make practical stuff, they put in so much effort. And I actually feel angry for them that little dicks with computers came in and fucking ruined it all. You know, they put in so much work. And then some prick with a MacBook or whatever comes in and just destroys it.
I think it would have been significantly more than a MacBook.
I think you're right. I think you're right, to be fair. But anyway,
did they not put any of that in like the special features, like any of these deaths? Because it seems such a waste that they wouldn't have released them if they shot them.
It shows you how they've done it all in the special features, but they don't show you the footage from the cameras that they actually, you know, all the special features are filmed.
Yeah, you know why that is? It's because they would have been like, why the fuck didn't they put that in the movie?
yeah, quite likely, yeah.
I mean, for his death, I would have much preferred if he died like in that sort of death trap of a place he was working. That would have had like a lot more interesting sort of potential.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, they specifically made him come through the fence so you could get bits of flesh coming at the camera in 3D. And that's the only reason he died that way. And even in the premonition, he died with a 3D effect as well because he fell back on a stick that pierced through his face.
I actually preferred that. I preferred that death to the
how he actually died. I mean, it still looked like shit. Well, yeah, it was probably better than the actual death he ended up getting. So next we have two simultaneous things happening at once. We have Janet coming through the car wash and Hunt getting his inside sucked through his asshole in a swimming pool. Janet is saved in the car wash. But I've got to say that car wash sequence where the roof opens and she gets trapped in it and it's flooding and she's going through, that was maybe my favorite sequence of the whole film, and she doesn't actually die in it because I actually enjoyed it. They didn't overdo it with CG. I mean, it was ridiculous, but that's fine. We know death does weird shit in these movies. You know, I actually really enjoyed that. So what did you guys think of the car wash bit?
I enjoyed
it.
Like
you? I think. Go for Ellie.
No, just I did enjoy it. It's just a shame that she didn't die from it because you would like to have seen.
Heartless bastard.
Thank you.
What about you then, Al?
I was the same as you. I think it was the one death or near death experience that didn't have loads of CGI or 3D in it.
Yeah.
And I think I think that was the thing that sort of drew me towards it, because like in the last couple of films there's been so many really good effects where they haven't looked cartoony and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was quite nice seeing like there's no need for CGI in that.
No.
Or not for most of it. It's like, as a majority, that should be pretty much all, other than a few wee touches ups. It should all be practical.
Yeah, I agree. I honestly agree, and I think that could have been an epic death sequence had George and Laurie not turned up and saved her. But it was still, in my opinion, at least to this point, the most interesting sequence we had with someone's death. What did you think, Jamie?
I liked it. I liked the foreshadowing. Her, sort of roof not working, and then she went into the car wash. I was like, although I wasn't expecting, Death to do the big sort. I was just expecting her to get wet from that, and then something from the car wash to sort of like come in and like decapitate her or something. But I really liked the flooding of the car sort of angle. Thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was super cool. Yeah. And then her finally getting out of that just to get trapped in it and to go towards like the thing going to take her head off. I thought that was it was very really interesting. I was like, we're going to see something cool here, and then we didn't. But anyway,
I did really enjoy the pool death as well.
Okay, where Hunt gets his inside sucked out.
More of the build up to it than the actual death bit. But I mean, all that underwater sort of stuff, it's really hard to film, and the guy did a good job of like looking fucking terrified. He probably was. They just waited, like, stay down there until you can't breathe and then pretend that it will just pull you out if you die,
I actually agree with that. He did a good job looking scared, despite the blood looking incredibly CG. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to skip past the deaths that we almost missed, because there's another premonition where a bunch of people die in a mall, a bunch of explosions, some escalator deaths, all really cool, but then none of it happens. So, they avoid the premonition. So I'm just going to skip that shit. So next we have George. Next we have the security, the cowboy, who gets crushed by a bathtub. We then have George, who's hit by an ambulance. And then Nick, Laurie, and Janet are all hit by a truck in the final sequence when it cuts back to 3D animations. So Al,
X-ray.
Sorry. So out of all these remaining deaths, Al, were there any that stuck out to you in particular? Any thoughts you had for them? Any pros, cons?
Well, I think the cowboy one was so forgettable that I didn't even remember it until you spoke about it there.
Okay.
I did like the ambulance deaths. We've had a few now over a few different films that are quite similar.
It's
getting hit by the school
Terry's
bus or getting
one,
hit. But I do quite like that. There is something quite funny about somebody just they're there and then they're just gone. They get absolutely melted by a vehicle and they're just away.
What about you, Ali? Out of all the remaining deaths, were there any that you?
I like the three of them getting their comeuppance at the end, basically.
Their comeuppance, they had it coming.
What did they do?
Sorry,
just
that was the first
for being dicks.
That was the first one that come into my head. My apologies. I just liked how it was Death's way of saying, I've got all three in one full swoop here. I enjoyed that, And as Al said, cut right to the 3D effect, which X-ray effect. Sorry, my apologies. Was really good. So
it was just sitting there thinking, oh, maybe we didn't change anything, and then. But I mean, as I said, I liked George. I thought George was the only character that was at least a little bit good. So him getting hit by thing is, in these films, you just can't get attached to anyone because you know that you can just
they're going to die. Yeah, I mean, ultimately,
and at any time, you're watching these films and you're like, he could die right now.
I mean,
or right now.
you essentially know how it's going to end as well. It looks like characters have survived, and then no, they haven't. That is the.
If I'm
ending
honest,
to...
my favorite bit or favorite interaction in this film was actually George when he was trying to hang himself, and then they've gone to help him, and he's really pissed off. He's like, I took a bunch of tablets, I tried to gas myself with my car, I'm trying to hang myself.
Yeah, it's just not working.
That was my favorite bit of the film.
Okay.
When he poured that, like, sort of, he was an alcoholic, so it was apple cider or whatever, apple juice.
Yeah.
And I was convinced that something was going to kill him, like right there. He was going to choke on the apple juice, or he was going to get, like, I don't know, hit in the back of the head by a flying machete that, some stupid build-up somewhere else, but he survived. And I was like, maybe he's going to make it.
Well, Jamie, well, we've got you. Which of all the deaths in the movie was your favourite? But I never said before you answer. We had 61 deaths total in this movie. 9 of whom did not die in the initial racetrack incident. So we had 9 individual deaths, 61 total. Right, now you can continue with your favorite death.
I think my favorite death is one that none of you are going to agree with. My favorite death was, no matter how shit it looked, just that woman getting scalped by the tire.
At the start,
I don't know why. Yeah, right at the start, just fucking standing there, boom.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah, I don't know. I just really liked it. I thought the angle was cool, and I liked it.
Okay, Ali, which was your favorite?
No, I'll agree with Jamie there. It was just the way it was coming across our head, and it just imploded. So,
okay. Al, which was your favorite death?
It looks shit, but for the actual death, the boy getting his guts sucked out in the pool and then blown up like a fountain into the air. I wish it was done
amazing.
better, but just standalone, like as a death, that was the best one in my opinion.
I have to agree with you, but mostly because all the other deaths were so bad.
Yeah.
I genuinely think they were all really disappointing in this film. So right, we'll move on. I suppose I'll give a summary and then I'll give you my rating and then you can go. I'll go first this time because it's no surprise how I feel about this. Pros of this film were the X-ray opening credits from the deaths from previous movies. I thought very cool, and that was it. That was the only pro. Cons: the acting sucked. The characters were all terrible. The CGI was horrendous. All the deaths looked shit. The 3D effects looked shit. And they done so much cool practical work, and then they just fucking ruined it all. 1.5 stabs, and it's lucky it even gets that. Frankly, it is the worst film we've covered to date. Jamie, what do you think? Stabs, summary, let's go. Let's get this shit over and done with.
As you said, the X-ray opening credits was great. The premonition was the poorest in the series. The second premonition, while it had some explosions, couldn't save it. None of it happened. I don't know. It was just a poor film for me. I mean, none of the deaths were standout. If I was to watch Final Destination franchise again, I probably would skip this film. I'll give it 2 stabs.
Ali, you enjoyed this one. Let's hear some pros.
I've got the fear. I've got the fear of giving out stuff. I'm gonna give it a 2.5 because I enjoyed it.
Al, what's final thoughts?
Fuck this film. 1 stab.
Okay, so you done less than me. Okay, fair enough. I think you didn't open quite as against it, but I've clearly convinced you throughout our conversation. Yeah, I mean, fuck this film. Fuck this one. Yeah. Fair enough. Right. Okay. So that's it from us this time. Join us next week where we will be discussing Final Destination 5, which thankfully is better than the Final Destination. The Final Destination was not the Final Destination because they did not want to end the franchise on this low a note. So we have.
I'm amazed they got the funding for another film.
It is surprising after this piece of shit. Right. If you want any content from Ali, he discusses comic books, science fiction, and professional wrestling over on his channel, link in the description as always. If you want content from Jamie, he is all over YouTube. It is frankly impossible not to find the man somewhere. But link for both of his channels will be in the description. One is him reacting to stuff that he watches. The other is him discussing Harry Potter. For stuff from me and Al, watch more videos here. We have lots. Click something, click like, click thumbs up. That's the same thing. Either way, comment. Let us know if you were scared shitless. And we will, as always, be back for one last scare.